I'm Fatheree.
This is Dave.
This is Brian.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
So welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 92nd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek all the time. And tonight is our second encounter with Star Trek Picard.
Yep. What's the episode title?
Maps and Legends. Even though there's not a single map in the entire episode, and I guess you could say maybe Picard is a legend, but that's not really how legends mean when they're connected to maps.
Maps and legends are used for charting out territory, and I guess he was beginning to chart out his journey and things like that. So, let's see if we can, as we go through the podcast, let's see if it resolves itself more, or if they just made up this title.
It's like Undiscovered Country. It was meant to go with a completely different story.
Sure. And I actually didn't know that. I used to think Undiscovered Country just meant the future.
Yeah, that was just to pull it out of my ass to get it to work.
I use it in that context sometimes, because I forget that it actually is supposed to mean, like, death, or the afterlife.
Yeah.
But there's a Star Trek YouTuber, Trekker Prize, who everyone should subscribe to his channel. He does, like, really fun content. He's a super enthusiastic fan, and real name Gary. And I was talking to him one day when I was traveling in Ireland, and he said, "You should come over to Scotland and visit me." And I told him, like, I can't do it on this trip, but maybe we can meet at some point in the undiscovered country. So he probably thinks I was talking about, like, maybe, like, I'll see you in hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I meant the future. Gary, if you're listening to this.
That's how we Texans threaten people.
Yeah. Shakespearean Texans.
But yes, this episode, Maps and Legends, was written by Michael Chabon and Akiva Goldsman, and again was directed by Hanelle Culpepper. And she's directed all three of these first three episodes.
I feel that they've got pretty confident direction. I'm not a film nerd quite in the sense of, like, the technical side.
From, like,
of
a
it.
cinematography point.
Yeah. The craft behind it is sort of my thing. But I felt like there's definitely a strength and confidence going on here. Good pacing to them. So
it's a good looking show.
I can broadly say, good job there.
Yeah, I would again. I'm not terribly good at picking up on those little details of camera angles and stuff like that, but if you didn't annoy me, you must be doing it right, because I didn't notice it. If I didn't notice a problem, then obviously it's pretty good.
If you're not spinning the camera upside down every other scene.
Yeah. Whereas there are moments in Discovery where I feel this is a little awkward or clumsy.
Or dropping lens flare all over the place.
Yeah.
Which there actually was a little bit in this episode, but it wasn't annoying because it was in, like, a room with big windows in the middle of the daytime with a bunch of sunlight coming in, and it actually felt real and natural and not
The world
overused.
does have moments where things are bright.
Yes. But enough about that. We're going to jump straight into the main topic of Picard Season 1, Episode 2, Maps and Legends. We're each going to give a non-spoilery kind of general impressions opening statement, and then we'll go full-blown spoilers. So, Brian, would you like to kick things off?
Sure. Again, I really liked this. It felt really professional, smooth, well in control. It felt like a a season 3 episode of something or other. You know, when they've worked all the bugs out and they know how the show works.
A good bearded Riker level.
Yeah, you know, and you know, we fixed the uniforms kind of part of it. So I was very impressed with how good this show is right out of the running block, right out of the blocks, whereas a Discovery was certainly kind of clunky in season 1 and a little clunky in season 2, though getting better. This show, it really just feels like a continuation of The Next Generation on this particular issue. It feels like they know exactly what they're doing and how to get the best out of all their actors and their sets and everything. I enjoyed it a lot. I did, perhaps the ending wasn't as punchy as it could be. I remember just being surprised. Oh, there's the credits. I guess it's over.
I think I've seen a few people mention that, and I felt that way too. So I guess if there's any one issue with the direction, it might be that this one ended a little abruptly.
I'll say this, though, is that I do get the impression that these 3 episodes that kick off the show that they showed together at the premiere were kind of intended to be a 3-part opener.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, it just sucks that you have to wait 2 weeks before total from the premiere of episode 1 to the release of episode 3 to actually be able to sit down and watch it as like a 2-hour movie. Yeah. But because if they're 3 45-minute episodes, they'll add up to about 2 hours.
But ultimately, first world problems.
Yes. Sure, yeah. This is a problem that no one will have in a few days when the episode 3 is out.
Right.
Dave, how about you?
Hopefully we won't be too much of a broken record here. I was still very happy with it. I did feel that like this episode kind of firmed up that this is the to me at least, the central format of the show feels like it's going to play out as a mystery. More than anything else. There's drama, of course, and other stuff, but this cemented that this will be a mystery with intrigues and things like that. I think if I had some criticism of the episode, it's that I sort of felt a few tropes show up that were a little bit, dyed in the wool sort of old tropes. You know, the getting shut down by a higher up, a bad guy conspiracy sort of within a conspiracy. Or even that the fact that is it Narek that that there was an agent that's like his sister felt a little, I don't know, Game of Thronesy maybe, and in a kind of slightly weird way.
Well, actually, I was wondering, are those like some sort of code names? Mother, father, sister, little brother. Is that a rank structure within their intelligence systems?
I think they're brother and sister.
I took it at face value.
It's funny you say Game of Thrones because I get real big Theon Greyjoy vibes off of him.
Oh man, yeah, you're right. Now that you say it, I do remember for sure when Theon met his sister.
I'm glad I didn't go into that territory.
See what I'm saying? I don't think they're going to go there. Although they were, she was kind of like talking to him sort of intimately as she sort of threatened him. Anyway,
I didn't pick that up as like intimacy.
They were simply physically close. Okay. That's all. Sometimes that's code for getting romantically intimate in shows. Anyway, but I did not think that was the intent.
Don't go that much into Game of Thrones, Star Trek.
While I recognized a few of the tropes going on, I was never anything less than kind of compelled. Really enjoying the characters and the scenes. I thought it was another strong episode and continues to engage me.
Okay.
What do you got?
It sounds like I might be the one who likes this episode the least.
Okay, good.
I didn't have as good of a time with this one as I had in the first episode.
Okay.
And that's probably largely due to just like that big return to the 24th century, and the return of Picard was such a huge deal. I was literally jumping up and down when I started the episode and saw the Enterprise D and Picard and Data and 10 forward. I was jumping up and down like a little kid, and it's going to be hard to like get that same level of like triumphantness with every episode.
Well, I did. Am I correct? This episode didn't have any old school characters show up that were new to us,
right?
So there was that, but also like that first episode was supercharged with Data and what's the song?
Blue Skies.
Blue Skies. There was a lot of sort of like, Picard Day banners and things like that.
Yeah.
So
it was the more fan servicey one,
right? But like as we said, I think well done fan service.
This episode though, it had a lot of heavy lifting. There's a lot of exposition, and they still haven't introduced most of their regular characters. Right? There's still 2 or 3 that I guess there's one that we get here at the end, and then 2 more that we still haven't met.
Yeah.
So they're definitely taking their time with the world building and establishing the setting for the show. So this episode was really geared towards like getting that work done and kind of finish building the foundation for the rest of the show and the story to come.
I really appreciate that because like Discovery is sometimes so busy trying to get to its next set piece that it kind of forgets to set up the context, which sells it.
Right.
And also,
even though context is for kings.
This is also a problem I have with new Doctor Who is they often don't take the time that Classic Who did to set up the context. So I really like this slow burn.
I've watched the episode a couple of times now. I was lukewarm on it the first time. But when I watched it again, and I kind of already had a handle on all of this this information that they were trying to establish, and I could just like watch the actual moments and not have to worry about all the explaining it's doing to me. I enjoyed it much more, and there's several scenes in here that I thought were very well done. And I think this is going to be the second chapter in like this 3-part premiere, so it'll be fun to see it after Thursday when we can talk about all 3 of these together.
For sure. And I actually liked some of the exposition, to be honest. Some of that stuff I thought drew out sort of some Romulan culture stuff in an interesting way, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit.
There were a lot of revelations in this. More than I would have suspected, actually. Because I kind of thought after the first episode, okay, well, here's what they're going to do. Here's their mysteries. We're probably not going to get answers anytime soon. But this actually revealed more than I would have thought. And not things that I had suspected.
Did y'all, I thought that by this time that he would probably be on the ship or whatever, you know. And so that
started talking about a ship.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want to thank everyone who was at the premiere for this, because none of this has been spoiled for me. No one's talked about it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. The one thing I did know was that like all 3 of these episodes were mostly on Earth.
Right.
But there's so many things in here that I didn't have a clue about.
I mean, I presume, like, it always looked like when we have not yet met Riker and Troy, that scenes with them looked like they were on Earth to me, so I presume that will probably be in the next episode.
Oh, it could be, yeah.
But yeah, that it would be a little bit. But on the other hand, as Picard himself says, he's like, once he gets into space, I don't know if he didn't have like a lot of leads. Some stuff generates in this episode, but he's kind of like, I was like, he's just going to go out there in a ship and just start going in some direction and hope that there's a twin of Soji? Soji is the twin of Dahj out there.
Well, we're starting to get in like the story of the episode.
He's going to fly around and look for a positronic energy signature that can be detected from several light years away, like in Nemesis.
No, but like they're not going to do dumb shit on this show like they did in that movie.
We hope.
But yeah, we'll just go ahead, since we're starting to get into the meaty parts, we'll just talk about like what happened in this episode. And much like Dr. Agnes Jurati gave Picard the short answer at the Daystrom Institute last week, we'll give you the short answer to what happens in this episode, and then we'll talk about it in more detail. But basically, Picard learns about the Zhat Vash, who are the secret police within the secret police of the Tal Shiar. They have a big hatred of synthetic life forms, and he concludes that they were behind the murder of Dahj, and they're going to be after the sister that he knows is out there. He goes to Starfleet to try to get a ship to go find her, and when he's rejected there, he turns to his old friend Raffi Musiker, that we don't know anything about. And while this,
but those who've read this Picard prequel comic do know a little bit.
Yeah, she's mentioned in there, and then there's also Soji Asha on the Borg cube, where we learn that they are experimenting with removing Borg technology from both Borg and the ship itself, and that's something that the Romulans, along with a kind of an interspecies effort, are doing, and the Romulan character Narek seems to be up to no good, and is actually connected to the Zhat Vash, possibly.
Yeah, and seemingly manipulating Soji, the twin of...
And they're also sleeping together.
Yes.
That's pretty much the entire episode in a nutshell. That's the short answer.
Plus 2 F-bombs.
Oh yeah, we got a couple F-bombs.
We'll talk about those too. Because how can you not?
But we also had like that big prologue at the beginning where we actually see the attack on Mars.
For those of you who didn't check out Children of Mars, here's this.
Yes.
But this shows so much more of it.
Yeah, we get to see the synths and what the synths were and how they kind of fit into society, which was, I thought, very interesting.
So let's start things off about talking about the prologue, and then we'll talk about the rest of the episode.
Yeah, right.
But just how did y'all feel about the way that was executed?
It kind of felt like that this was where they decided not to spend quite as much money. I mean, by TNG standards, it all looked great, but it looked a little cheaper than everything else I'd seen so far. The set, like the lunchroom is also the workroom, and you know, like they have one set, and
I mean, I guess since it was just meant to be a scene that was really all that was meant to happen was he pulls a lever and like turns off the planetary defenses, and that's really all the scene was there for. Yeah. I guess I can understand them not building a lot of Mars sets.
Yeah, it wasn't. I'm fine with it. It's a great place to save money. You know, if you're going to save money, that's a great place to do it. But I did notice that it looked a little cheaper than some of the other stuff.
It looks really weird that they're on Mars, the red planet, where everything's red, and then all the interior is red, the walls are painted red, they're wearing red jumpsuits with red hard hats. Like, I'm pretty sure if you worked there and that's all you saw was the color red every day, you would go insane.
Well, but Mars isn't nearly as red as it's often depicted if you look at real photos that haven't been hyper-saturated.
Yeah, NASA likes to color it red.
Yeah, they turn up the saturation.
But, yeah, that's the kind of visual devices that you use in, like, film and stuff, so that, like, different geographical locations have very clear visual delineations between them. Yeah. Like, maybe it's a little heavy-handed, but there's no missing that's on Mars.
And Star Trek has a long tradition of heavy-handed design aesthetics.
Sure.
Like you can recognize Romulan architecture anywhere in the Next Generation, even if you don't see the big bird, because of the way the color scheme and shapes they use.
Klingons as well.
Exactly.
But I'd say this is like a slam bang kind of opening. It's like it would be almost like a cold open to an action movie or a Tom Clancy type of thriller. I enjoyed it quite a bit, actually. I thought it was a good way to kick off and to make it sort of feel real, to see one of the synths, to see that they look like Data, but clearly lack his depth of character.
It's one of the theories I had, that they would be like the mass-produced Kmart version of Data.
Yeah. That's exactly what they seem like. Yeah. I liked the kind of tongue-in-cheek interactions that they had with them, where they're like, hey, you do anything crazy last night? And he's like, hell yeah. And they're like, what was it? He's like, nothing. And they're like, hell yeah. And he's like, hell yeah.
I like the hell yeah, because they don't explain it. They trust that the audience is smart enough to know why this android is saying hell yeah. And I appreciate the trust that the writers are giving us.
The first time I was watching this, I kind of had problems because I thought these future Federation people that are so good and noble that they're working on building these 10,000 warp ferries, and they're contributing to the greater good of society, like we would hope people would be in the future.
Are racist against androids?
Yeah, but when I watched it again the second time, I realized, like, well, this isn't like a self-aware machine like Data was. This would be like if you were being mean to Alexa or the Roomba or something like that.
Or maybe your dog or something, you know. It's that isn't going to get its feelings hurt.
How about those robotic dogs that people kick when they're doing the physics tests?
Like if somebody was saying mean stuff to Siri on their iPhone, like it's more on that level.
Plus, I think there was only one of the people there who actually was like, nah, these things are stupid.
Well,
everyone else
a few of them
was a little funny and quirky, but they weren't ragging on them.
I was annoyed that she said the word dude, and she's like, dude creeps me out. He also said dude last week on Picard, and I think that doesn't really work for like 24th century.
As a Texan, you were offended?
as a Star Trek viewer, I was offended.
If nothing else, these were blue collar dudes and dudettes. I felt
everybody
like
on Mars says dude.
I felt like it was appropriate. I had not noticed the double duding, but it's good that you brought that to light.
What do y'all think about actually getting some future-looking ships and not a reuse of Discovery ships like they did in Children of Mars? We see these, I guess they're supposed to be some of the 10,000 warp ferries, and this looks like a John Eves design. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. They had kind of a sort of a slightly mass-produced look to them.
I will say, as long as we're talking design, what was up with those replicators? Those were the most low-tech, clunky...
Yeah. It looked like a toaster oven.
Well, they made a microwave ding when they were ready.
Yeah. I was just like... Why do they have... They went out of their way to make the replicators look low-tech and clunky.
I liked it. I got the impression that resources are strained. That
Why would resources be strained at the heart of the Federation?
Yeah.
I think that they cannot, like... I don't know how replicators are supposed to work within the fiction, but I don't think it's... I get the impression that there's still some limit. You can't just, say, print a planet or something like that. That there's...
but you can replicate a replicator, a nice small replicator in components and assemble it.
I mean, if nothing else, I feel like that this is a particularly strained operation. I know why they did it. They wanted to show that these were blue-collar Joes that maybe don't have the best of the best stuff in the Federation. That not everybody has it quite as good as a Galaxy-class ship. Whether it exactly makes sense, I don't know. But that is but to me it conveyed exactly what it was supposed to, which was these guys don't have it quite as good. They're a little crankier, they're a little more blue collar, they're a little more roughneck.
I like the portrayal. I like that.
Yeah, I like them.
What stood out to me was that that this was a different tone than we sometimes see on Star Trek. I kind of liked seeing that. And it also popped for me that this was a sudden harsh violence was visited upon these characters with a really creepy kind of cutting welding torch beam or something like that.
It was like a laser torch.
Yeah.
I like seeing weapons. I don't know if this is actually a tool, not a weapon, but it was used as a weapon. I like seeing the sustained beams instead of the pulses that we normally get in modern Star Trek.
And it showed just how dangerous beam weapons could be if you think through how they would work. Yeah. Them coming out the other side of the body was a really nice and horrifying touch.
Really good effects, I thought.
Yeah, it was very horrifying, and then just the idea of someone snapping and committing mass murder and then killing themselves.
Oh yeah, he does the gun to the head thing.
It's something that happens in real life. It's like the Vegas shooter. Basically did that, and
very common thing. Weirdly, with mass shooters, they always seem to kind of go into it with a sort of a suicide.
But I cite that one specifically because it was really mysterious to the motivation, and also it's on my mind because Eminem just made a music video about it that was pretty well done. But that was a pretty intense opening to the episode.
It's the only action in the episode, isn't it? Is there any other action sequence?
No, and that was something that was...
they cut to the bedroom after the action is over.
There was some post-action.
Different kind of action.
That's something... I rewatched the first episode earlier today before watching this again. And I did remember this first episode had a lot of well-done action in it.
Yeah. I didn't particularly notice, but I wonder if people who are more casual will. But that said, I like the mystery approach that they're doing, which is kind of a more controlled pace.
Now, would you guys agree with me that it looks like something hijacked that synth?
Yeah, we get that shot, quick shot of the eyes blinking, where it looks like it might have been hacked or something.
Yeah.
Or it might have been receiving orders. But yeah, there's definitely more to the story. And
if they were worried about mistreating synth, he probably wouldn't shoot himself in the head after he was done.
Right.
He would have left.
He was doing that to cover up what
so this kind of points to somebody who doesn't necessarily care about synths, or at least not on a micro level.
Maybe he doesn't care about martyring them for a cause.
Yeah, so not on an individual level.
But anyway. That could have just been the effect of an Order 66 happening.
One last thing on the prologue, and then we can go ahead and jump forward 14 years, but we also got new shuttles instead of reuse of the Discovery shuttles, which have been annoying me ever since Children of Mars, and then they used them some last week in Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
And again here, but at least I know that there are some future post-Nemesis shuttles out there.
Right.
So, let's talk about the main three storylines of this episode. The way I see to break it down is we have Picard's story, we have Soji's story.
Yep. That's the Borg cube stuff.
Yeah, they're the Reclamation Center. And then we also have some covert Romulan happenings. So we'll start with our main man, Jean-Luc himself, and he is doing some Dixon Hill type of detective stuff.
Yep.
The reaction I had to the mystery they set up last week was I was like, oh, this is kind of like going to be like Sherlock Holmes Picard. But then like I thought about it more. I'm like, no, this is Dixon Hill Picard because it is kind of more like that film noir type mystery.
Yeah, now that you've thrown that out there, they need to reference that at some point in the series this season. He needs to make a Dixon Hill joke, or like he gets stuck and he reads a Dixon Hill book to try to figure out what to do next or something.
It is very like film noirish, detective-ish type of like old pulp mystery story. Like you start off as like this this old grizzled guy who's kind of down on his luck and then this, you have like the hot dame that shows up and presents
desperate
like this
for help.
This
you're right.
Mystery. And
she's in trouble.
Yeah, and then like with her like being killed, and then like having like a personal motivation to go and like solve the mystery. Yeah. Like that's not Sherlock Holmes. That's Dixon Hill.
They made a point, and I think this was maybe a slightly just meta joke of Picard saying in this that he never got into science fiction. As like a genre, that he just didn't get it or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of people are like that. Like my dad would say that.
Sure. And Picard does seem to me like a guy who's probably mostly a history and nonfiction kind of guy overall.
I feel Shakespeare, he has the complete works of William Shakespeare.
But like, I think probably classic literature is probably on his bill. And I think Dixon Hill feels to me like it might be his sort of one big indulgence in sort of a genre thing.
I feel like in like this like advanced society, science fiction would probably, like, disappear.
See, I don't believe it would, but I do find myself struggling to imagine what science fiction looks like in the 24th century of Star Trek. Because every trope we know of today has shown up in a Star Trek episode somewhere.
People would just, like revisiting the classics, like Tom Paris with Captain Proton.
Yeah.
And a lot of that would seem kind of, like, quaint and weird.
Getting back to your original Dixon Hill point, I feel like if he brought it up, he'd be like, would probably be having, well, I was going to say considerably less fun than with Dixon Hill, because this is like the stakes are so much higher and personal on this one. But I did see clips, I've seen clips from episodes to come, where he's got a grin and when he says engage, he's got a smile on his face. Yeah. And so I think he does find some joy in what he's doing. So yeah, maybe he will kind of find a positive resonance of the Dixon Hill stuff.
Yeah, I just think now that you've mentioned it, they need to hang a lantern on it and actually mention Dixon Hill in some way at some point.
I'm sure I'm not the only person who's thought about that, and I would be disappointed if these writers hadn't thought about it.
No. Now that I hope they've connected those in their heads. Yeah, you're right.
But let's talk about Laris and her. She's kind of more of the Sherlock, and Picard's the Watson. Like she's the one doing all of, like the mystery solving, and he's the person that the detective has to explain it to.
Well, this absolutely confirmed their Tal Shiar, and she almost felt like a modern day like character like in a Tom Clancy techno thriller because a lot of her stuff was technology based.
Now that molecular reconstructor, how the hell does that work? The only thing I can think of is it's timey-wimey. And it's somehow rewinding time at the things it points to on some level.
I could imagine that it like analyzes like particle decay and like all kinds of crazy stuff like that. It can still
tell you like exactly like what color shirt someone was wearing,
and the sound it records the sound. And also, if you scrubbed, like if for example somehow you can back extrapolate all the movement of the particles, then if you scrubbed everything, you wouldn't be able to see anything before the scrubbing. Everything before the scrubbing would be a void because there would be no particles the particles would all be jumbled and all the information would be lost.
Well, it makes more sense for it to be timey-wimey, and that would explain why it's probably illegal in the Federation.
That actually I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. Anything timey-wimey tech tends to cause problems.
But I like that exchange with Picard where he's like, "Oh yeah, like that doesn't even work that well," and she's like, "Oh, that's what we wanted you to do."
Yeah, that was nice.
That was very Tal Shiar. Yeah, in a way that didn't make her come off as sinister.
Yeah, it had that same sort of world acceptance kind of sarcasm or whatever that she has in most of her other ways.
But this is the moment here where they're in the late Dahj's apartment in Boston. This is really weird. You could just beam in there. I'm assuming they like hacked a transporter with like some Tal Shiar hackery and got in there. It's just so like they could just go straight in and come straight out. But she is able to determine from the computer there that the twin that they've been looking for, Soji, is off-world. And so this is where Picard discovers he's going to need a ship.
There's a kind of big dramatic beat and musical swell when he finds that out, and he's like, oh my gosh. I thought it was... I didn't think he would be so surprised to learn that she was communicating with somebody off-world, because I would assume that happens all the time. I mean, there's probably lots of siblings that are on different planets.
Well, he was probably hoping that she wouldn't be off-world, because now it's going to be like a real pain in the ass to find her.
For sure, for sure. So much so that he's going to go and babble some crazy shit to Starfleet.
Well, before he does that, he's got to get cleared from his doctor to be medically fit so he can re-enlist in Star Trek, which there is actually a precedent for retired officers rejoining Starfleet.
Sure.
Sometimes against their will, like Dr. McCoy.
Yes, the reserve activation clause.
But apparently Kirk left Starfleet at one point, according to the Star Trek Generations, and Worf just left and came back to go. We went to go fight the Klingon Civil War and just came back.
So why doesn't this seems like why didn't he get Beverly to clear him?
He doesn't want anyone who's going to be really loyal to him to be involved with this.
But he wants somebody who's loyal enough to lie on the medical report.
Well, I guess an old Stargazer buddy, which is who the Doctor is.
Dr. Moritz Biayun, I believe is how you say his name.
Something like that.
But yeah, he was
when I saw that person, he seemed like a character actor from back in the day, and I assumed he was actually somebody we saw in some Stargazer flashback. Yeah. But you tell me this is not the case.
Yeah, you texted me that Wednesday night at 3 a.m. after you watched this.
Well, I was watching it.
You were like, is this guy from TNG?
I liked the fact that he called on somebody who was a Stargazer buddy.
Yeah.
I still like the idea
that
behind
was one of the things on your wish list for things you wanted to see in season 1 of Picard, was you wanted him to have allies he could call on.
Yeah, this is a bit of that going on for sure. I suppose I of course wanted a little of the fan service of it being an ally we knew from an episode, but if nothing else, we've seen flashes.
We got a Stargazer shout out. That's fan service.
Yeah, absolutely. And this guy tells him some not great news.
Yes,
about the parietal lobe.
Yeah. Now, was that the same biobabble from All Good Things?
Not quite, I think.
Yeah, they never actually mentioned the Irumodic syndrome in this episode, but what he does say is that the cause of these problems that would explain why he's having these weird dreams, and apparently he's lost some appetite and he's having mood swings. That's why he's yelling at reporters. Yeah. But he said it could be a number of syndromes. So they might be building up to Irumodic syndrome.
I don't know why they'd be coy about it.
It's weird that they wouldn't just flat out say it.
Well, I mean, it makes some sort of sense that the doctor wouldn't be able to identify everything with his basic health scan.
He did indicate that it's
but the writers could have wrote that in there. They're like, oh yeah, it's Irumodic syndrome.
Yeah, but is that just biobabble that clutters things up? We know he's got a mental condition that's degenerative and going to cause him problems. That's the important plot point. And those who are in the know, like nerds like us, know exactly what they're talking about.
It could also be Borg stuff, maybe Borg are trying to send.
It's just that since All Good Things did mention specifically the somewhat Alzheimer-esque Irumodic syndrome, it's a little weird to give him he's now got a ticking clock, which is his life, presumably. Yeah. We don't know. There's a lot of things can happen to change these things in Star Trek, but at least he certainly believes he's got a ticking clock going on.
Now, do y'all think he's going to survive the series, or will the show...
There's definitely be a second season 2.
Yeah,
there's going to be a season 2, and
Picard show about his Romulan pals.
They've talked about a season 3.
Yeah.
But do you think that the show might...
I think if they're talking about season 3, then they clearly are not necessarily writing a death day for him yet. They're probably just maybe at some point, but I doubt.
Well, there's also been some talk that season 3 might be the end.
I had a kind of a grim thought. This is just a realistic point. Patrick Stewart is an older actor. They brought this up early on. If he should happen to pass away during the making of the show, then they have an explanation, can finish out the season, presumably, with, other people carrying on for him. He's got a lot of loyal people. Yeah. It's a sad idea, but it could be a practical matter.
Yeah. Now, me and my friends talked about the medical diagnosis, and the way we took it is, it is Irumodic syndrome. The Doctor hasn't quite figured that out because he hasn't run enough tests. But Picard remembers back from his alternate adventures with Q that he knows this is it. And I actually was thinking, but this is after All Good Things, so why didn't it show up earlier? But then I thought, if he knows that's in his future, he might have deliberately avoided seeing a doctor because he knows he's going to get it and there's nothing they can do.
Right. Or he might
he has to see a doctor now to get back in Starfleet.
I think I got like a better explanation than that. Is in All Good Things, the present day Dr. Crusher tells him, like, I mean, there might be things you can do to prevent this.
Right, so she increased the fiber in his diet or whatever.
Yeah, or something like he's been able to postpone it.
Okay, that works too. But I kind of like the idea that maybe he knew he might have it, but he was avoiding seeing a doctor until he absolutely had to.
And even if it's not Irumodic syndrome, because the doctor didn't confirm it, but...
If it's not, then it's got to be a plot point of, like, maybe it's some timey-wimey thing beaming data visions into his brain, explaining prophecies.
I mean, that could be.
Prophetic dreams.
That could be.
Or to me, that sounds like it might be Borg stuff.
And it could tie in with the Borg stuff.
It would be pretty clever to, like, throw as a red herring to suggest the Irumodic syndrome, which maybe he did would have otherwise prevented, and that this is something completely different. But we, the fans, will be like, oh, it's probably that thing from All Good Things, when in fact it's going to be a plot point of, future Data who gets resurrected at some point and is beaming stuff backwards in time into his Borg implants. Who knows?
Yeah.
It could be any crazy thing, but it may be a plot point that's not the plot point we think.
But the Doctor said it is for sure, without a doubt, whatever it is, the only things that could cause this are going to be fatal.
Right.
And you are going to be killed by this unless you encounter something on this crazy space mission mission you're going on that kills you first.
Yeah, he's like, maybe you'll get lucky and die first on the mission.
I was like, wow, okay.
That's some Bone style doctoring there. I like it.
But he wanted someone who would like tell him that and turn him loose and let him go, and that's why he didn't get Dr. Crusher.
But we already know Crusher would have done that, and so does he, because he saw it in an alternate universe.
Because Dr. Crusher might want to.
She'd want to join him. Then,
She would have wanted to join in. You're right. So maybe she's he knew this guy won't come with me, but Beverly would have, and I don't want her with me. Or Beverly's dead, and that's a twist.
I don't think they would kill her off screen and like go this long without mentioning it.
The fact that they haven't mentioned her and got some other doctor kind of seems to me to raise more of a question than just that. I hadn't thought about it,
but that is true.
Yeah, where is Beverly? There's a big Beverly-shaped hole in this episode. And yes, there's I don't want to bring my friends into this, but it could be more than that.
# where is Beverly?
Yeah.
But the doctor signs off on his medical release form, right?
Yeah, and then he goes off to Starfleet headquarters to meet the... Admiral Kristen Clancy, I believe, the Starfleet Commander-in-Chief. Mm-hmm. We get that cool look at the Galaxy-class Enterprise, but for some reason
like a hologram of it inside.
They have a hologram of like the Discovery version of the 1701, which I wish they just would have had like the TOS one up there. But
I had no problem with the Discovery one. I would have preferred. I would have liked to seen even more Enterprises, like 3 or 4. But I didn't want to sit there for like 2 minutes. But 3 or 4 would have been fun.
Or even just not even Enterprises. It's like, let's show some other ships. Just like to have like a Nebula class on there, and then Excelsior. And...
They got to move it along for the casuals.
Yeah.
So Picard is pretty blunt with her. Speaking of moving it along, he's like, hey, there's a bunch of crazy stuff going on, and he just like lays it all out in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And
he's like, and I need you to reinstate me, and I would be okay if you have to demote me to captain to do it.
Yeah.
And then we get the F-bomb.
Yeah, like her reaction to that, like I thought this was weird the first time, and now that I've watched it a couple times, I actually like really like this.
No, this is my favorite scene.
Yeah,
I love this scene.
This is where we get that what they call the hard-hitting drama.
Yeah.
This is the hard-hitting drama of this episode.
Yeah.
But when her reaction with just the sheer fucking hubris.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about this, but she mentions like, like you were on the news talking trash about Starfleet, and you think you could just like come in here and like get your job back? Like, what the hell? And I kind of understand her perspective.
Yeah.
And
well, she also defends the perspective of the Federation during the thing that he chewed him out about on his newscast.
And adds some new evidence and new information we didn't know. Like there were 14 members threatening to pull out of the Federation over this Romulan mess. So it was a lot more complicated than we had so far been led to believe.
Akiva Goldsman said something interesting about that in the Ready Room after show. He said he wanted Starfleet to be complex but not compromised.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an interesting approach and one that I feel more comfortable working with. We've talked about this and wanting this in Discovery and Trek.
We're both tired of sinister Starfleet.
Yes.
Yeah.
And complex but not compromised is how the admirals generally were depicted in Star Trek. Go back to the original series. They're all pains.
And even not just like the admirals, but sometimes like the Federation Council or like the Starfleet itself will have some questionable policies or give like some questionable orders.
Yeah. But mind you, we have kind of seen this scene from the other side in Next Generation. Remember the whole bit with Picard versus Admiral Sati, the drumhead? The drumhead, where at the end you've kind of got this former admiral, now retired, going on about a big conspiracy and how Starfleet needs to jump and start chasing this big crazy conspiracy, and Picard is standing on the other side of the table saying, "This is silly. There is no big crazy conspiracy." We've actually seen this whole scene play out from the other side, only Picard didn't drop the F-bomb.
Well, it was a little different there, where she was like clearly a stand-in for McCarthy and McCarthyism in the wrong. But
from the Admiral's point of
for
view...
those out there who say Star Trek doesn't need to be political,
yes.
go watch the Drumhead.
I'm not trying to defend that the Admiral was a good person or right about that. I'm just saying we've seen this scene pretty much different context, but the same beats.
Now Picard's got the wild conspiracy theories.
From the Admiral's perspective, I would be like, "What the hell is this guy talking about? He's off his fucking rocket." There's Romulan assassins. There's Bruce Maddox is involved. What? And he wants me to give him a ship? This is crazy.
Yeah.
He did seem like Grandpa needed his pills that day.
Yeah, and like you gotta take the keys away from him.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're not getting a warp ship. You're not going off world.
Especially since any Starfleet ship probably even has weapons,
Yeah.
But I like some of the dialogue there where Picard, he's trying to save the day. He sees this as like a potential danger.
Yeah.
And he tells her, "Ignore me at your own cost." And he's trying to sound all tough. Yeah. And then she just like totally just cuts his nuts off and castrates him basically. When she says, there is no danger, only the pitiful delusions of a once great man desperate to matter. And then she tells him to do what he's good at doing and going home. Because this Starfleet ain't his home no more, and he needs to get the F out.
Yeah.
Now, I did think that the somewhat maybe more realistic, although I know she's governed, she's pissed. She's pissed at it, and so she's governed by her passions too. But like at the very least, when somebody of his reputation comes and says that there's a Romulan conspiracy, that you might at least say, "All right, we'll put you with somebody, submit a formal report, go through the process, talk to our intelligence people." Like, it's obviously something that would clearly not work for his timetable that he's working on.
Yeah.
I kind of would have liked for her to do more than just say, "Get out with the crazy." I sort of would have liked it slightly more reined in.
My headcanon is that Picard's interview that wasn't Starfleet anymore has turned into this monstrous public relations scandal, and she's just spent 2 days trying to do damage control on that
That's exactly what happened.
She's just like, "Oh God, now Picard's here, right?"
Well, they even suggest that when she says, I was watching that along with everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's implied there that has made made some waves.
That's why I think it works that she was as pissed as she was and didn't say, "Well, let's talk to some people." So anyway, that flops, and he's got to go and start talking to his Tal Shiar buddies for some option.
Well, he gets a visit from Dr. Agnes Jurati.
Right.
She's telling him that she thinks that Maddox is actually responsible for the creation of Dahj and the twin they're looking for, Soji. Mm-hmm. And that it would have made sense to model them after Data's painting, although I don't know how Maddox would have seen the painting, would they made that clear before.
Maybe Data sent copies of all his paintings
Data might
Maddox.
have posted on his Instagram. We don't know.
Here, just to prove I'm human, here's I'm a living thing. Here's all these paintings to help convince you that I'm not just a toaster.
But what we learned from her that's more important is that apparently Dahj's backstory was all fictitious. Whoever she was talking to on that hologram last week wasn't her mom.
Right.
Which we kind of got from that
They
scene,
said that she's, I think, roughly 3 years old,
Yes.
right? That's when everything else prior to that was faked historical records, so she was probably built about 3 years prior.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was weird that they have this 21-year-old actress who's playing someone who's getting in, I guess, into grad school is what the Daystrom Institute is supposed to be.
People are real smart in this future.
Yeah, it happened. But, like, her twin sister, Soji, like, already has her doctorate.
Yeah.
But, like, if it's all, like, made up and fabricated, and they just had, like, all that knowledge programmed into their brain, like they're plugged into the Matrix,
Right.
then sure, yeah, it doesn't matter. All those certifications and everything are all going to be fake. So
I have a question for you guys. What do you think Bruce Maddox's plan is? We've been given some clues. We know what we know that there's these two girls, Data's daughters, but could there be a bunch of these androids out there?
Could there be 5? And that's why Data had 5 queens on his poker hand.
Yeah.
Which he beamed back using tachyons into Picard's cyborg parts.
Which messed up his parietal lobe. But yeah, I'm wondering. I remember there was a role-playing, a little seed in one of the old FASA role-playing game ideas that a bunch of humanoid androids were slowly being integrated into Federation society, so that when it was revealed, they would be, look, you've been hanging out with these people all the time, they're clearly fine. And it's kind of a way of carefully preparing the Federation to accept them. And that occurred to me, is that what Bruce Maddox is doing? Is he carefully planting these organic androids throughout the Federation?
Well, there's a line in here where Picard asks her, have you figured out what she was doing at the Daystrom Institute?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I don't think that's important right now. The more important thing is going to be finding her sister.
Yeah.
And it would be weird if there's 5 of them when they say that these things are created in pairs.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, maybe it's an even number, I don't know. Or maybe Maddox will just be like, oh yeah, like, I found a way to do it with, like, 5 instead of 2.
Or the cards mean something else entirely.
But there is clearly, like, a reason why she was going to the Daystrom Institute. There's clearly a reason why Soji was sent to this Borg cube. I don't know what... if Maddox is doing all this, and he's the one responsible for placing them where they're being placed... I have no idea what his end game is.
The secret power behind the Tal Shiar are the Zot Vash.
Yes.
And I think until we kind of know whatever it is that has them so terrorized and paranoid and
2,000-year-old secret.
Some 2,000-year-old secret.
Yeah.
Against synthetics.
It doesn't make any sense that, like, Romulans are against, like, robotics or androids or anything, because... in the Season 3 Next Generation episode, The Defector, that defecting admiral tells Data, like, oh, I know some Romulan cyberneticists who would love to get their hands on you.
Oh, nicely that, yeah.
But me being, like, the guy who's always going to try to, like, no-prize it, maybe Romulan cyberneticists seek out cybernetic creatures to disassemble them and take them apart.
Maybe he wants to take them apart to...
destroy them.
To figure out a weak point. So
the
that they can
equivalent
take
of
out the Soon androids.
Because then, like, Data...
They're the firemen in Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, because, like, Data does say, like, yeah, I wouldn't like that. And then the Admiral's like, nah, you wouldn't like it. So
all right.
It kind of works.
So it's an anti-cyberneticist.
It did. It occurred to me when the who's the lady who's the Tal Shiar who works for him?
Laris.
Is she the one who says, didn't you ever wonder why there aren't any, robots or artificial life, in Romulan society? And I was thinking, that's kind of true of, like, all of the major races that we tend to see in Star Trek, like Klingons and Andorians. I don't feel like you see many synthetics. So I wasn't quite buying that it's a specific thing for the Romulans. When I think obviously
Romulans are very, like, arrogant and think they're like the best species ever. So
sure,
it was probably coming from a place like, wouldn't you assume that Romulans can do everything humans can do?
Do we know that how long, by the way, Romulans have been, like, warp capable and any of that stuff?
Well, probably thousands of years because they had to leave the planet Vulcan. But I guess that could have been on sub-light speed ships.
Yeah. I was just wondering...
a long time. Much longer than humans.
Okay. Yeah, I think before I can really speculate much about what Maddox's plan might be, I think we'll have to, like, learn that, or maybe in conjunction with whatever they fear. Yeah. And the show's going to have to come up with something pretty good, because this is, like, apparently their whole, like, secret service is secretly, there to make sure that robots don't get created.
Yeah, somebody gave those proto-Romulans all the Terminator movies or something.
Yeah, something like that.
They watched Star Trek Discovery Season 2.
Yeah.
They're like, fuck that.
Yes.
But
they'll have to have a good answer for it, whatever it is, and I think they're going to be holding out on that one until close to the end.
Did they ever like explain like Picard's pivot to where like I guess like originally he wanted the ship to go find Dahj's twin, but then like he's like, oh no, I got to get Maddox.
I mean, it may just be that he's like, Maddox will lead me to the twin.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
But he doesn't have any essentially leads.
But he still wants a ship. He still wants to leave the planet to find Maddox.
Yeah.
So well, he probably checked and nope, no Maddox here. So.
He's used to being on the Enterprise though, where he'd just be like, computer, locate Commander Maddox.
Yeah, I don't think Picard is ready to properly begin the investigation until he's like in something with nacelles.
Yeah, well, he explains that he can't call on anyone from the Next Generation crew. It's weird that they don't mention the two ladies, but they.
Well, it's not. He's not even the one who brings them up. It's
Chabon.
Chabon, yeah.
Yes.
But I had to watch this a couple times to understand what they meant here. But basically, Chabon says, okay, you need someone who both hates you and has nothing to lose, because Picard knows this can be dangerous. He doesn't want to put anyone in danger. So I guess he wants someone who's like, doesn't have a lot to live for. So if things don't go too well, okay. But he also, at the same time, wants it to be someone who's not going to like take the bullet for him and sacrifice themselves the way that Data did. And he doesn't want to, that's why he doesn't want to bring those Enterprise crew people into this.
Right, they're all going to be wanting to take a bullet for him.
Yeah.
Something else Akiva Goldsman threw out that Will Wheaton in Ready Room was like, was that he feels like Picard very specifically feels guilt over Data's sacrifice. And that sort of makes some sense to me in the sense that Picard is a guy who likes to always be in control, and I can imagine would prefer to martyr himself, even though it would be a last-ditch thing. But
yeah, and I think that was established pretty obviously in the first episode with just the fact that he's still haunted by this 20 years later.
Now, do you guys buy that for 20 years he's been or 18 or whatever it is that he's been haunted by Data's death?
The show literally tells us that in this episode.
But do you buy it? Does that feel real that Picard would 18 years after the death he still hasn't gotten over it?
Fully haunted, I don't necessarily know that I quite buy. I think it's like if something kind of brought the memory back to him, then it might return. And if he's getting tachyon emanations, and
he says, "I've been mourning him for
He's
years."
Definitely lost people before, like Jack Crusher or Tasha Yar, but none of them actually like literally gave their life to save him that I'm aware of. So I think that's what makes this one a little different.
He's also older and probably more melancholy, and so that one probably is the freshest one. And maybe just weighs on him more, but because it's also like it also Data represented the future of synths, and since we know that was a big issue for him when the Federation kind of outlawed them, he maybe thinks, maybe if Data was around, if he hadn't sacrificed himself for me, that he could have actually changed minds on this. The whole future of synths could have been different if he'd been around.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I can kind of buy it, but I do think I'm like, I think it would be reasonable to have moved forward and not be haunted by it. But he's a sad old man.
Yeah. I mean, I can live with it, but it just feels a little stretchy, especially since it wasn't like Data and Picard were never like Kirk and Spock.
Right.
Where
right.
Yes. That is true. But
something that I think Laris, I guess it's she and Chabon are talking to Picard, and they say that secret police is redundant for Romulans. That everything that like Romulans do is secret.
Yeah.
I liked. It occurred to me that I'm liking how they're handling the Romulans already better than Discovery handled the Klingons.
Definitely.
That when little pieces of their culture come out in this way, even if it's reiterating
That's
broadly...
That's kind of what Discovery wanted to do by, like, expanding on the Klingons and, like, showing us more and, like, different sides of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the way that they executed it, a lot of it felt less Klingon.
Yeah.
Where much of this still feels in line with Romulans.
Yes.
And in some ways, like, connects, like there's a world of difference between TOS Romulans and Next Generation Romulans. And after watching 2 episodes of Picard, I feel a lot more comfortable with that, just seeing that there's different sides to this society.
And that, Laris and Zhaban can, even amongst themselves, we've seen them as sort of dry, almost Alfred-like butler types, housekeepers for him, and then kind of like turn a bit on a dime into like old spy masters.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of cool.
I want to see an action scene with them. I want to see them just like take out like a shitload of bad guys.
Are we looking at RED here or something?
RED?
Retired and Extremely Dangerous?
Oh, that was the movie based on the Warren Ellis thing. Yeah,
I'm surprised your comic guys didn't get that. But
well, I didn't. I never read it or watched it, so I only know of it.
I like the first one, the movie.
I've heard
never
it's
read
fun.
the comic,
but I guess it'd be something like that. And they kind of set that up here, where she tells them only Tal Shiar can protect you from Tal Shiar. But now the idea of the Zatvash being like the super Tal Shiar.
Yeah.
That even like the Tal Shiar doesn't really know about.
Yes.
But apparently her drunk mom will go blabbing
her drunk mother-in-law.
Yeah.
will go blabbing their deepest secrets, after she gets tipsy. But I had a little bit of an issue with how kind of that came out so easily.
The Tal Shiar within the Tal Shiar seems a little
shaky.
Yeah.
It might make sense if everything in your society is secret, that there would be layers of secret. There would be super secrets within, if everything in your society is about keeping secrets. It might make more sense to them than it does to us.
I kind of like the Cold War idea of but their spies infiltrated everything. Like they're on every planet, every government, and
as long as we're speaking about this, I think did they mention somewhere the Gorn hegemony?
I was going to save that for the Easter egg.
So excited, so excited.
When they said that, I was like, "Oh, Dave's going to be happy."
Yeah, Dave, I think your favorite website is gornhub.com, right?
Maybe.
But
apologies.
Anywho, let's talk about the end of Picard's story in this episode, where he encounters Raffi Musiker, who from the comic we know she was his first officer during the Romulan rescue mission.
But it has not been said on the show yet.
And from all the promotional material, anytime they talk about this character, they're like, yeah, she's like a broken drug addict alcoholic.
Well, that's a bit sad to have running around on Earth in the Federation.
I agree. We'll deal with that next week, though, when we see it.
But she has awesome real estate.
Vasquez Rock. Yeah, I was also saving that for the Easter eggs.
No, but Vasquez Rocks is actually not an alien planet. It's actually Vasquez Rocks is Vasquez Rocks.
Yeah, we don't know if it's actually California. They could be like, oh yeah, we're actually in...
Until they say otherwise, I'm taking
Morocco.
it as the joke is we're going to use this place as it's what it actually is for a change.
But what her character, this is one of those things that felt a little tropey to me, almost a little bit more like a scene I'd expect from Fast and Furious, where he walks up and she literally pulls a gun on him and she's like, I thought I told you never to show your face around here again. A little over the top for me.
And then Picard tells the alcoholic, I brought the good wine, it's the 86.
Is she literally an alcoholic?
That's what they've told us.
That's messed up. The show hasn't said it. Only behind the scenes. I need to see it in the show, because if so, that's super fucked up, Picard. That's way messed up.
Like I said, we'll tackle that next week.
Right.
Yeah.
That said, that was kind of a cute sequence, though.
I was listening to the Trekkie girls do their live stream on this episode. If anyone wants to check them out, you can find them on YouTube at the Trekkie Girls is the name of their channel. But they were under the impression that this must be an ex romance, and I was like, oh, I could totally see that.
Sure. The way she said it is the way they treat that in movies and stuff sometimes too.
One of the big concerns,
Picard's
Patrick,
ex-girlfriend is pointing a gun at him.
Yes.
He's really, really bad relationship.
Well, that's one of the things that Patrick Stewart was a big deal for him in The Next Generation. Was this guy needs to get laid. Can we have more episodes where he gets laid? And that was a big thing for Patrick Stewart back then. Maybe he still has a little bit of that. We know he has some creative influence on the show.
I'm not I have no objection to him looking up old girlfriends. It's just that he apparently ended the relationship so poorly that she's pointing a gun at him.
I've never seen anything indicating he's particularly good at relationships.
Yeah, but you have to be particularly bad at them to either pick somebody who's so unstable they're going to point a gun at you, or to mess it up so badly that they're going to point a gun at you.
In Tapestry, what was her name? Penny, maybe? She threw a glass of water or a glass of some drink in his face.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a whole nother level from pointing a gun at somebody.
I know.
His best success is one-night stands with Vosh.
We were talking about like tropes and stuff. Like, I mean, like you see that all the time. Like someone like goes up to like old flame that the audience
Marion punching Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's the scene.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, did y'all like the scene? Did it seem a little over the top?
I was fine with it. I didn't read ex-girlfriend into it, but I wanted to know who she was because I haven't read the comics. But yeah, I was fine with it.
But I kind of would like it to be like if there was like a romance there or something, because that would add interesting drama.
Yeah, I could work with it. The fact that we know that he at least has a previous connection because she's first officer certainly doesn't mean that they couldn't have had a romantic relationship as well. And
they're obviously not going to hesitate to show a little bit of sexiness on this show. So I think now that we're done talking about Picard, we're going to talk about the
Borg sex cube.
Yeah,
Borg sex cube. Even though it is oddly chaste, I thought, for like streaming service.
Yeah,
like we're going to say F-bombs, but I'm glad like it wasn't like totally gratuitous,
right?
But it was weird to be like, okay, like we're going to have like this attractive young woman in granny panties that go up to her belly button and a sports bra. It almost felt like a little too chaste.
Why are you focusing on her? They could have showed his schlong too.
And yeah, it did strike me as wow.
We've seen. Sorry, Brian, but we've seen Klingon tits in Star Trek now.
Yeah.
I think it's time for Romulan dong.
Yes.
You know, it's too bad we don't have episode titles for these, other than what the show is, because Romulan dong, I think, would win it.
It's probably very pointy.
I will say this. We know that it seems like they got cold feet after dropping the F-bomb in Disco because Season 2 seemed very reined in. So they may be like pushing things a little harder in Picard, but they're probably still going to approach it a little cautiously. They might have been like 2 F-bombs and genitals would be too much.
My headcanon was that they got up to start getting dressed and then they started making out and fell back into bed and then the scene started. And that's why they had some of their clothes on. I'll say this. But I did have to go to the trouble of no prizing or headcanoning that, so...
I didn't even think think about it. Well, I just thought I was like, the scene was only supposed to convey that they'd slept together. I don't necessarily need to see nudity to get that.
It's a lame thing that they do in TV and movies all the time. But
since they'd already crossed the line, it felt weird that they were afraid to cross the line here. That was what I guess it felt weird.
But enough about that.
Yeah.
We get their daily life on the Borg cube.
Yeah, and things are very Romulan. A lot of secrets. That they kind of turn that into like a running joke with Narek about how like he can't tell her anything about himself. She even asked like, "Is there anything you can't tell me?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm a very private person."
That made me laugh.
Yeah.
You know, they Akiva Goldsman in the after show mentioned something. I thought he kind of nicely summed up what the cube was about in a way the show kind of hadn't done in a great way, which is to say, it is this derelict Borg cube, but that it sort of almost functions like, I can't remember how he quite put it, but it seems to me like it's like a big archaeological dig. Everybody from the sector wants in on it, but it's in Romulan territory, so they run.
Yeah, you have a bunch of different people from a bunch of different corners of the galaxy coming here. The Romulans, I guess, have ownership of it, and they're using this technology to for profit. Mm-hmm. People are buying it from them, I guess.
They probably need new sources of income after getting their planets blown up.
They mentioned the Romulan Free State.
Yeah.
Which, is that like their new government? Is the Empire gone and this is something else, or is this like a faction?
I don't know. I did notice that it was different. My assumption was just that this is what formed after the collapse of the Star Empire because of the Hobus incident. Yeah. I also noted they said they'd been messing with this cube for 14 years, which is the same number of years since Hobus. So they found this cube either before Romulus got blown up or after.
They found it before.
Before?
Because there's a sign that says the last assimilation was 5,843 days ago.
Yeah.
And kind of like, this last workplace accident was so many days ago.
Yeah.
But that's actually like 16 years.
Oh, 16 years. Okay, because they mentioned 14 years at one point.
But I don't know,
16.
are these Romulan years or Romulan days? We don't know. So all of that is kind of invalid.
Well, it's probably, from what we've seen of Romulus, it's probably within, 20% of that number. So it's about the same length. You have the, how do you say it? Zat-Vash being incredibly paranoid of cybernetics, and you have the Romulans selling cybernetic technology wholesale to any government any group of scientists that have the latinum for it, apparently. So I thought it was interesting that they're developing all this cybernetic stuff on the Borg cube at the same time that we're revealing that one of the most powerful factions in the Romulan government, or at least is in fact wildly paranoid about cybernetics.
Yeah, I do think they'll want to. Hopefully they'll do a little bit to reconcile those.
Well, I think those are meant to tie together.
Yeah.
Also, Narek, who's apparently working for the Zat-Vash, apparently doesn't have too big of a problem with androids, because he knows she's an android and he's bonking her. So clearly not that afraid that she's going to go crazy and twist his head off.
We learned that that he has ulterior motives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he sees it as taking one for the team. What a penalty he must pay.
That seemed kind of lame to me, that like, Lieutenant Rizzo, we're going to send your hot brother to go seduce the synthetic, unless like it was like an excuse to like get more sex on TV.
It could be,
but then like show it in the most like chaste way.
Yeah, and then they dialed that back.
Laris and Chabon seem to indicate that there was like this like level of disgust that the Zat-Vash.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That they had with the with cybernetics that was like above and beyond anything we could imagine, like ultimate xenophobia. It does seem a little weird that he'd be boinking one. That like if he's a believer in it, unless he's just a kind of a pawn a little bit.
We still don't know what exactly his role is in all this.
Yeah.
But more to that when we get to that. Let's just talk about like what we've learned about the cube that is the Romulan reclamation site. They're de-Borgifying the Borg drones that were left behind on here.
They've been in like suspended animation.
Yeah, this cube has been like abandoned by the collective. So the Borg still exist post Voyager, because we didn't know if like in the Voyager episode Endgame, if like are all the Borg dead now or what. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish they would have referenced that and maybe said like this cube has been neutralized since Janeway did her thing and destroyed their transport
that would have been
hub.
a nice reference.
I guess we know they've been on it for 16 years, but do we know when it was trashed?
No. But we get the impression that the collective is still out there, because they have to explain that, the collective considers this a graveyard that after the... he uses the term submatrix collapse. So I guess like the connection of all the Borg on that cube... When that, like, I guess that's like the submatrix, and when that goes out, it's kind of like your router at home. It like connects all your wireless devices, and it's connected to like your internet, and then like your router goes down, and then like all your wireless devices are unconnected, and you're also like separated from the internet.
Yeah, there was
else.
Voyager established a central plexus and a vinculum. I can't remember which. One of them connects that cube to all the other cubes. And one of them connects all the drones in that cube together. And I can't remember which one is which, but one of those does one thing and one does the other thing. And those are like the two vulnerable points on a cube that are not redundant. If you can wipe those out, then that's it for that particular gimmick.
It's kind of cool here to see like different Romulans that look different. We see some with like the ridged forehead, some without the ridged forehead, some with a slightly ridged forehead. Yeah. And, some look more TOS, some look more TNG, some look more 2009. And I like that. I like the species diversity. We also get a Trill character here who has the most ridiculous name, but the polytech from Trill, Dr. Naashla Kunamadestafi.
Yep.
So everyone be sure to memorize that name for Star Trek trivia.
Do we think this character is going to be a notable supporting character?
I
or
think
just
she's
a
going to be
walk-on?
killed by Borg
Yeah,
in the
I
next
think-
episode.
They set up that, like, there's dangerous parts of the cube, that you have, like, this little badge, and if it lights green, you better run. So I think that's setting up, eventually we're going to see one of those turn green. And it might be her who dies.
That'd be kind of messed up, because then they would have killed off 2 black characters as cannon fodder to show how bad the bad guys are.
They've killed some white people on the shows, too, though.
All right. Well, I feel better now. But I do actually, I kind of like that environment, though, where it's like the Borg ships, the interiors have always been one of my favorite Star Trek dangerous places. That notion of sort of walking amongst the zombies that mostly ignore you, but could wake up. So I like that even now, even with them sort of neutered, that danger still exists, and I think that's kind of cool.
It kind of felt to me like a giant underground tomb thing that's cursed and with booby traps, and you've got all these archaeologists digging around in it, but they also haven't explored all the chambers.
But they haven't had an accident or an assimilation in 16 years.
But you think we're going to get some mummies next episode, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I just, that was the first thing that came to my mind when I watched it the second time, was this feels like that. Some sort of haunted building that we're all digging around in. And
we get to learn Soji's role here, where she's kind of like the therapist or counselor that helps the Borg make their, or the XBs as they're called.
Yeah.
Like kind of make their, like ex-Borgs.
Yeah. X-Ray Bravo. I'm assuming it stands for X-Borg.
Yeah.
But she's kind of helping them with like their transition.
She said something in the episode that I thought was interesting when she was talking about the Borg cube and sort of like her philosophy. I think this is it's kind of a character defining line, I think. She says the Borg cube is mighty and omnipotent. The artifact, which is what it's become, the artifact is lost, severed from the collective, broken, vulnerable. And then Narek, who was talking to her, said, "You find vulnerability and brokenness beautiful." And she clearly does.
I kind of get that vibe from her last week when we didn't really know what she was talking about, but when she says, or when he says to her, rather, you deal with broken people all day, you probably don't want to hear my sad story, but there are, like, people out there that they do kind of have like that nurturing instinct, and that does kind of like translate into like their romantic relationships. Also, they like to find someone broken that they can like help them recover.
For sure.
And maybe he put on like this story about like his dead brother and stuff. This is like part of his like seduction approach to get the information from this.
I got the feeling
synthetic.
he might have been baiting a hook there. So I think so.
But go ahead, Brian.
One quick minor point. As a potential reference to Nemesis, we again have twins. There were 2 Datas, there were 2 Picards. Now we get the Picard TV series, and we've got 2 of these android girls. So there's this reoccurring Romulan twin thing that keeps coming
Watch
back.
Up the Long Ladder, and you can see a bunch of twins.
So,
There's
I
also
don't
a brother,
think that's tied in. But
there's also a brother and sister in this, but I don't think they're twins.
Yeah.
But let's talk more about that brother and sister and about Narek and what's going on there with the... We're done with Soji on the Borg cube.
Yep.
I want to sing that like smoking in the boys' room. It's like Soji on the Borg cube.
Yeah, the cadence works. Somebody put that to some music.
And we're going to transition over to the clandestine Romulan fuckery.
Yeah. The land of the Zhat Vash.
But we meet a character, Commodore O, who kind of seems like she might be head of Starfleet security. Admiral Clancy, the CNC, I like that she actually tries to follow up even after she like ran Picard out of her office and is like, there's a chance he might be onto something. We better take a look at this.
Right.
And
I guess that was what the scene I was kind of hoping to see. I forgot that. Does kind of come.
Oh yeah, give her more credit, Dave.
All right, fair enough. I judged her harshly.
And
the sheer fucking hubris of me.
That's what she would say if she was here.
She says that to like everybody all day long.
Commodore...
Her husband like brings home something she doesn't want to eat. Sorry, go ahead.
The Commodore O, she had like that IDIC on that box on her desk.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
I think that we're supposed to think that she's a Vulcan, but actually a Romulan disguised as a Vulcan.
Yeah.
We know that Lieutenant Rizzo, her underling, is a Romulan altered to look human, and the sister of Narek.
Yep.
I also kind of get the impression that they might be Zot-Vash themselves.
Oh, that's what I assumed.
The idea that, the Zot-Vash has people on other planets and on other worlds, that would kind of be
I do think Section 31 is either extinct or really dropping the ball here if the head of security is part of the Super Tal Shiar.
That's another possibility here, because Lieutenant Rizzo talking to her brother through, and I'll say that for the Easter eggs, but she mentions Commodore O has been a good ally for many years, or something along those lines, which made me think, well, maybe she's actually not part of the Romulans. Maybe she's Section 31 who's, like, working with them or something. I really don't want to see Section 31 in Picard, though, because they've used them way too much in recent years, from Star Trek Into Darkness to Discovery Season 2.
Yeah, I mean, if Section 31 was destroyed sometime in between, then that would explain why their security's so crap that this Tal Shiar or Super Tal Shiar can infiltrate up to the rank of Commodore.
Maybe Section 31 was destroyed between Nemesis and Picard, that's the story they'll tell in Lower Decks.
That would be an odd choice, but okay.
Well, since Romulans are all about sort of espionage and subterfuge, I could also just buy that they're just that good.
Yeah.
That they're the guys who can get spies.
No, my assumption is, like, if the Tal Shiar didn't even know about them, they're only like a myth within the Tal Shiar, then, well, I would think that, they could totally, like, infiltrate Section 31. But then DS9 had that, like, Section 31 took over the Tal Shiar.
Yeah, Section 31 took over the Tal Shiar,
what if the
you're right.
Zot-Vash only wanted Section 31 to think they were actually infiltrating the Tal Shiar?
See, at some point it just starts getting really silly. So,
By the way, Lieutenant Rizzo, they said that she was the one who was in charge of the op to bring in Dahj.
Yeah, right? So those guys that were, like, beaming in and fighting Dahj last week.
Under her orders.
Yeah. Oh, what if they take over, Section 31 takes over the Tal Shiar in that Deep Space Nine episode, and then they discover the big secret of the Zot-Vash, and are so horrified by it that they are now working with the Tal Shiar to resolve this problem?
Hopefully it's not that complicated.
Well, I like that better than just the Section 31 hasn't noticed the...
Whatever they end up doing with it for the show will be something they can explain in, like, one sentence.
I hope so.
So they'll whatever it is, they'll probably pare it down.
Well, they could just say, an alliance between Section 31 and the Tal Shiar. Yeah. That's all they need to say. We can fill in the blanks with what we know.
It was cool that she called Picard the Hermit of Le Bear.
Yeah.
I thought that was nice and melodramatic in a good way. But this is also the first Commodore we've had in Star Trek since the motion picture. There's a mention of a Commodore during, like, some of the subspace chatter. But I think, this is the first Commodore that we've seen in the 24th century and since Star Trek the motion picture.
Yeah, I think...
No, take that back. We had a Commodore on Enterprise.
Oh, well, but that technically is set before.
Yeah. But it came out after the motion picture.
The TNG rank structure, it always looked a little funny. They never showed us the one-star admirals, the Commodores, I guess it turns out they are. I don't think we ever saw a one-star admiral in TNG, but we do here. And apparently they're called Commodores. I don't think there ever was one in TNG.
Oh, there was a Commodore in Star Trek Beyond too. I keep thinking of more Commodores.
Yeah,
but yeah. So,
just cut this section
that's
out.
still pre-next gen. It's like that phrase.
Yes.
Didn't seem to be used, but then we didn't see any one-star admirals until.
But then they always talk to Picard about promoting him straight to admiral.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe Commodore is just slang for a one-star admiral, like something that just kind of caught on.
I have no strong feelings.
Well, but anyways, so Lieutenant Rizzo is surgically altered to look human. She's talking to Commodore O. She says she has her best man on it. Is she talking about, like, her brother when they're saying like, oh, I don't really like his methods?
I assume so.
I wasn't sure, but it's almost got to be.
Yeah,
because they also talk about, like, if push comes to shove and they have to take care of Picard, they're going to take care of Picard.
Yeah,
but Commodore O says, "Leave that to me. You worry about the mission." And in the conversation between Lieutenant Rizzo and Narek, we learned that they're trying to find a nest with fellow abominations. So it definitely sounds like there are more than two of these data kids.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we're going to find out there's like dozens or maybe more than that.
Yeah. That's kind of Battlestar Galactica, Cylon, type stuff.
The weird thing is, like, if I don't know where they ultimately want to take this. If they do get to that point where it's like Maddox's dream happens and you have like hundreds or thousands of them, it'll be kind of weird in that might not quite feel like Star Trek if there's super robots everywhere, just because that's simply never been part of Star Trek.
But people said that about like putting Klingons on the bridge of the Enterprise. It wouldn't feel like Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, Data was pretty potent. He was used so often as a story device, as like above and beyond just about anything else. If there's that many more like him,
but they're not going to be like him. They're going to be like organics.
Yeah, I guess so. And also, they may not like.
It would be like a new species.
Who knows what they want to do? They may want to go and colonize a planet and raise it, create a utopia, and have nothing to do with Starfleet.
Yeah.
But
or the Federation.
The Federation. But yeah, be that as it may, those are going to be, I guess, big end of the season revelations.
Anything else that y'all want to talk about before we go into the Easter eggs?
I think I hit everything.
Since the episode sort of ended abruptly, I don't have anything to add. I will also end abruptly, and we will jump to the Easter eggs.
Well, I did have like one thing I wanted to add.
Aha! That'll make it extra awkward.
Laris.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of has like some like sexy MILF energy in this episode that like I didn't pick up on the initial episode.
I didn't think that this was where this conversation was going to go.
We didn't mention.
Is it just the Irish accent?
Well, that's part of it, but we didn't mention that the first F-bomb came from her.
Oh yeah.
She said cheeky fuckers.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty funny and kind of adorable. I actually, because I couldn't get the closed captioning to work on mine, I couldn't.
Yeah, you had to ask me what did she say?
Yeah, because that's what I did hear. Cheeky fuckers is what I heard, but I was like, that is definitely not the turn of phrase I expected to hear.
So cheeky fuckers is okay. Dude is right out.
Yes.
Okay.
That's so prosaic.
But because she's Irish, it's like cheeky feckers with an E.
The sheer fucking cheeky fuckers.
Yeah, we gotta combine both.
The sheer cheeky fuckery of it
all.
all.
That's all I got. Let's go ahead and dive into these Easter eggs.
All right.
I'm gonna try to knock these out super fast.
What do we got?
First one, Dave already mentioned with the Gorn hegemony being mentioned.
Let's see him. I want to bring him in at some point.
It would have been cool if they threw in the Tholian assembly also. Let's get all the TOS races in there. But the Gorn have been left off the table longer than the Tholians. So.
They've been marginalized in a way I'm not comfortable with.
I agree. We also have pink and yellow flowers out on Picard's patio. This is, of course, in reference to Dahj and the flowers that she said her fake dad in a fake memory that probably never happened created these flowers for her.
Mm-hmm. Oh. They're hybrid flowers.
Yeah, they're also pink and yellow. When Picard makes it to Admiral Clancy's office, we hear the classic doorbell thing sound effect. And then she says, come, like Picard used to say when someone tried to enter the ready room.
I did enjoy that.
And I would have enjoyed it more if she was Admiral Nechayev or Commander Shelby from Best of Both Worlds, but now she's like an admiral.
Shelby would have been... Nechayev would have been too old. She would have retired by now, but Shelby would have been an awesome pick.
Yeah.
I would have... Now I want that.
Then we could have that in our Easter egg list. In that office, though, we do see a map of the Federation area. You can't really make it out, but it kind of looks like most of the Star Trek star charts we have now, where there's like this big blue patch that is typically the Federation space, and then next to it we see some green for Romulans and some red for Klingons. Mm-hmm. So Romulans still have like a big territory. I don't know if it's like the Free State or like different sections, or even if like the Star Empire still exists in some form, because most of their government probably evacuated, but...
Yeah,
I would like to see that star chart in a close-up and actually get like the details of the lay of the land. On the board cube, we have two Andorians walk by who don't look like Enterprise Andorians, don't look like Discovery Andorians, don't look like that one weird hologram Andorian in The Offspring in The Next Generation, but they actually look like TOS-style Andorians, which was more species diversity by bringing that back.
Yeah. No, I'm always happy to see them. Nice blue. I didn't notice if the antennas were moving.
So, no, they weren't moving. They were, like, static, like in TOS.
Okay.
When Agnes Jurati comes to visit Picard, she mentions that people who work in synthetics tend to be very secret planny, is the way she describes it.
Mm-hmm.
This is very much in line with Dr. Noonien Singh, who was very secretive, who actually, like, secretly built his wife into an android body and secretly survived his fake death and had a bunch of secret android sons scattered around.
And the whole Soon family is kind of weird when you go back to Enterprise. And Ira Graves was pretty crafty too. So
she was also reading the Isaac Asimov novel I, Robot, which is about robotics.
A little on the nose, but we'll accept it.
And she mentions Regulus, that Dahj had like been at Regulus before. She was going to school there, it sounds like. Which Regulus, the Regulus system gets mentioned all the time. There's like a Regulus 2 and a Regulus 3 and a Regulus 5. Often mentioned. I don't think we've ever actually seen any of those planets, but it comes up in DS9 and TOS and Enterprise and the Next Generation all, I think I've mentioned it. I think the original mention of Regulus, I went and checked on Memory Alpha real quick, and the earliest thing that I saw when I skimmed the page was in a mock time, when Spock is describing Pon farr to Kirk, and he says, just like the salmon on Earth or the giant ill-birds of Regulus 5, Vulcans must also periodically return home to mate.
Yeah.
So, I never gave much thought to that line, but like giant ill-bird is weird.
Did you say eel?
Yes.
Oh.
I think they're depicted in the Worlds of the Federation book by Shane Johnson.
Yeah, they probably are, because most of the TOS early TNG stuff was in there.
Eelbird seems like something that would be on Avatar The Last Airbender.
The book is like right in front of us, so we can look at that as soon as we're done with this. Right. For the next Easter egg, we see Lieutenant Rizzo and Narek having a brother-sister chat over a holographic communication, not unlike what Shinzon used to talk to Picard in Star Trek Nemesis when they had that conversation in the ready room on the Enterprise. Yeah. So it's like some Romulan holographic communication technology.
Yeah. And certainly refinement of what we see on Discovery.
One last Easter egg. Vasquez Rock.
Oh, yes.
Right. But yeah, we will be signing off after we check out some of these subspace transmissions. We asked y'all to give us some feedback on how you felt about last week's episode, the premiere of Star Trek Picard. So, Dave, what thoughts did we receive that we're gonna share with the whole wide inner world?
Let's take a look. All right. So first up, regular commenter Adam B. Owen says of the first episode, amazing writing leading us into an engaging story. I loved all the weight behind Picard realizing who Dahj was and how precious that would make her to him. Completely agree on that. That was one of the biggest things for me was that emotional weight and how it even like kind of charged up Nemesis. Let's see. Here's some from YouTube. Larry Nemechek says, Steven, I agree. Dodge's 50-foot jump looked cheesy, lame, even limp. I immediately thought crouching android, hidden synth.
Yes. My good friend Larry Nemechek, a.k.a. Dr. Trek. I think you won like comment of the week.
And Red Ketchum says, was hoping the name pattern was going to be Dodge, Pontiac, and Kia, just as a reference to a time when the time traveler called Data the Model T of androids. That's pretty good.
There's a deep cut.
Yeah, that was the episode with like the Max Headroom came to the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Over on Twitter, Trek on the Tube says, best first episode of any Star Trek show, in my opinion. Bold words, but it's in the running. For sure. Boat Trek. I was very disappointed when I realized I couldn't travel forward in time and watch all 10 episodes. I feel you.
Yeah, and I'm actually like an advocate for the weekly release. Like, I like being able to chew on an episode for an entire week and have conversations like this and analyze it.
Me too.
But at least like these first 3 episodes, like I'm so hungry to get like these first 3 under our belts and really like get into the show full on and see what happens.
I kind of like that they're stringing them out with space because I don't want the game to end.
Yeah. Veriki says, awesome. The way they're tying up loose ends not only from Nemesis, but apparently from Measure of a Man, The Offspring, and even Star Trek 2009 is brilliant. Brian, Detective Lieutenant Police Squad, says, was great. It had that perfect combination of new and nostalgic. The few new characters were done very well, and the fact that it's not taking any plot points from the comics, novels, like before becoming Data, I really enjoyed. Melissa says, thoughtful, assured storytelling. Sir Patrick Stewart at the top of his game, entirely Picard while also showing a fragility that speaks to the passage of time and traumatic events. Intriguing mysteries while also feeling character-driven. Just superb. V.H. Vivaldi says, it's great that the pilot didn't stoop to using mindless action and instead brought back what was probably the greatest strength of TNG. A strong, grounded, moral, exemplary person in Picard surrounded by equally deep, multidimensional characters. It's a nice way to put it. I like it.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
That's a lot of good feedback. So thank all of you so much for being part of the conversation with us. And if anyone out there would like to share some comments about this week's episode, by all means, drop us a line. You can comment on our Facebook page. You can comment by tweeting at me or by leaving a comment on our YouTube video, and we will go over some of those when we talk about next week's episode. The End is the Beginning.
Whoa. That sounds like time travel shit.
It's the end of the 3-part premiere, but the beginning of the rest of the series.
The sheer fucking hubris.
And hopefully time travel.
I hope not.
Dave's favorite.
I hope not.
But
I love time travel the way you love the mirror universe.
Fair enough.
Either way, time travel or not, we will see you there.
Yep.
Next Sunday. And until then,
live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.